Good morning. Welcome to your Thursday morning, early morning intuitive guidance. I had to think there for a minute. Glad you're here. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom for your day. And these words of wisdom couldn't be more appropriate for me, so I'm hoping they will also be appropriate for you. So I'm going to grab a drink of water here. Forced air, very dry. All right, and we haven't had this in ages, so I'm really excited to share another chunk with you. I'm going to give it a minute or two, wait for some of you to pop on, and then we'll go from there. But there's our first person, and it's Abigail. Good morning, dear. Glad you are here. Welcome, welcome. And usually once one of you finds me, then a whole bunch start rolling in. Thank you for the sunrise. I appreciate it. Good morning, Ruth Ann. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. There's Cindy. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Everybody's starting to pop in. This is good. We have a really cool reading today. So it comes from the Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication book by Sharon Ellison. And I feel like I'm on such a roll today already. It has been years where oftentimes I have to enter all of the words, and that today almost every single word auto-populated as I was starting to type it. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, Gwen. Welcome. Glad you're all here. And I think this reading today is apropos for the era that we're in and the season that we're in. So I hope you find it so also. But good morning, Simply Country Barn. Glad you are here. Welcome, welcome. So let's just take a minute to settle in. First, I'm feeling like a whole brain posture would be really good this morning. So I want you to cross your feet at the ankles. I want you to put your arms out in front of you zombie style. Cross at the wrist. Turn your palms down, interlace your fingers. You can then just rest them in your lap. Good morning, Bobby. Glad you're here. Or you can wind them up to your chest, whatever works best for you. Then I want you to just sit and breathe for a bit. Noticing your body, paying attention. I was already texting with a friend of mine this morning who was saying that she did a body scan. Good morning, Miss Morgan. Glad you are here. She did a body scan and noticed that her shoulders were up around her ears. So I asked her to have a conversation with her shoulders, and they told her exactly what was going on. Our bodies are wise. They're very smart. The more we listen to them, the better off we're going to be. Good morning, Donine. Glad you're here. I'm reading a text message that just dropped in from my sister, so sorry. But just breathing, just settling in, and what this does for you is it forces your brain to fire on both sides, so you're getting your whole brain working this morning. Good morning, Pat. Glad you're here. Welcome. I just feel like I want all of our brains really firing well as I read this part in the book, because it's just so spot on. Also, if you wouldn't mind, okay, first let's do this. We'll unwind. So your feet go flat and tense your fingertips. And if you think about your brain, here's your brain, two hemispheres sitting in your skull, right? There's that little band of fibers in between them called the corpus callosum that's meant to be a communication bridge between your hemispheres, which do slightly different things. And there's areas of your brains that do slightly different things. When we're stressed, that band of fibers becomes more like a barrier than a bridge. So when we do the whole brain posture, it forces our brain to fire on both sides, get that bridge opened up again, get us whole-brained instead of half-witted, okay? So that's why we're doing that. So something else I'd like to just pitch out there. If you all wouldn't mind putting up a little good energy for my friend Marlo, who landed in the hospital last night with COVID, I would appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so Taking the War Out of Our Words, Sharon Ellison. For those of you who have the book, yay you! We're on page 233 in my version of the book. Some of you, I think things are numbered a little differently, but this part is called Accepting Imperfection. Accepting Imperfection. Sound like anybody need to hear that today? Let's see what it has to tell us. Any notions of perfection have to be tossed out the window when we use non-defensive communication. I still sometimes find it difficult to think fast enough to use this process as effectively as I would like, although it gets easier with practice. So we've been working on this book probably most of the year, a little here, a little there, little dribbles and drabbles. Hopefully, periodically you think about it and you practice some of the things that we've learned, how to ask non-defensive questions, how to make non-defensive statements, how to do predictions, etc. Good morning, Tira. Glad you are here. We are doing Taking the War Out of Our Words, the art of powerful non-defensive communication this morning. And we're talking about accepting that we're going to be imperfect at doing this. Good morning, Mal. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. So, here she says, I can almost always think of ways I could have said it better. Ever have that happen? As soon as the person walks away, ooh, I wish I would have said that. But again, if we're in that stance, that's defensive communication. We want to be as non-defensive as possible. So let's see what else she says. Our imperfection does not necessarily mean our interactions become ineffective. The conversation I had with the hotel manager about noise could be a textbook example of several things not to do. So I don't know if you remember that story from the book, but she was staying at a motel. It was very, very noisy. She went down to the front desk and explained to the front desk person about the noise, and he was first very non-committal, avoidant, whatever, and then got snarly, and so she was practicing her non-defensive reactions. Let me review 2 sentences I said to him. The first sentence was, why are you angry with me when I'm the person who was inconvenienced? And the second one was, I see that you are not even able to look at me. Here, I assumed that he was angry instead of asking him how he felt. Good morning, Beth. Glad you were here. Good morning to anybody who slipped past while I was talking here. There's Debbie. Good morning, good morning. Glad you're here. When I stated that he wasn't even able to look at me, I added an unnecessary quality of judgment to my observation. But because my tone was neutral, he still dropped his defensiveness. So she wasn't perfect at this thing, but it still worked out okay. We're not going to be perfect at this thing, especially when we're trying something new. So if you have a row going with your second cousin twice removed, and typically when that person says X, you flare up and react with Y, the first time you practice stopping, taking a step back, breathing a little bit, trying to get your brain to settle down enough that you can say something non-defensive, it's going to be arduous. It's going to be awkward, uncomfortable, whatever. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. This is worth the practice. It's so worth the practice. I believe it is good for us to remember that perfection is finished, static, and therefore outside the realm of the living. What a great way to put that, right? We are human beings. We are not going to be perfect at anything. Our imperfect efforts to become non-defensive are simply a part of our being human. The next section, and this will finish up this chapter, is called Communication as a Transfer of Energy. Think about it that way. Communication as a transfer of energy. We're handing energy over. Ultimately, questions, statements, and predictions are tools for using energy. Energy is our source of power. When we make the internal shift to a non-defensive mind and heart set, we change how we use our energy and therefore how we use our power. And even that word power, how many, especially women, react to the word power? Because we think of it in terms of that narrow band of power over. How do we use our power to manipulate or hurt people? Instead of power with. Power with. That's how do we use our power to influence things for the better, okay? The essential change we make, I believe, is to move away from seeking to control the choices of others. Good morning, Lucy. Welcome. Even our attempts to get someone's attention or respect are controlling efforts that usually result in some kind of psychological warfare. So think about that. How often do we do that? All the time. All the time. It's how we've been trained to communicate, which is why we need books like this to help us untrain ourselves. And I can't remember who said that, but I thought it was absolutely brilliant. He said something along the lines of getting healthy is basically unlearning a lot of what we've already learned. It's not necessarily learning new stuff, it's unlearning the old, not so great stuff. Instead, we can develop the internal motivation to speak and listen in a manner that focuses on strengthening ourselves. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it. The personal empowerment that results from this kind of energy shift has been recounted in examples throughout the book. In many instances, the shift can be so potent that it can seem to be broadcast telepathically over time and physical distance. Barbara was a workshop participant who had not spoken to her sister Sherry for several years. Do you know any of those circumstances in your family or in other people you know? They haven't spoken to someone in years. During the workshop, Barbara focused on getting out of the power struggle and opening her heart again toward Sherry. On the way home, she decided to call her sister. When she walked in the front door, the phone was ringing. Sherry was calling her after a 7-year silence. Wow. Shifting the focus of our internal energy can also give us more conscious control over how or whether we receive the energy sent from others. We don't have to take on someone else's energy. If someone else icks on our wow, we decide whether or not we're going to allow that to stay. We can move that off. We don't have to accept negative energy from others. According to a martial arts teacher, our bodies are transformers of energy. We have the capacity to take in one kind of energy and transmute it. We can turn it into something else. When we neutralize our tone of voice and our body language, we literally take the charge out of the situation and diffuse the energy. Also, if you remain as calm as you can be, it's hard for the other person to stay escalated. It's really hard to maintain that unless you climb up there with them, okay? In the process, we get our ego out of the way so that a true encounter and communication can take place. Once we recognize our ability to work with our own energetic makeup, we realize we can refuse to take in any negative energy directed toward us. This is an important qualifier to the principle that we need to open our mind and heart set. So there are those words that automatically seem to strike right to your heart, right? I'm so disappointed in you, whatever it is. Again, we can learn to protect our heart with that, okay? Marilyn told me the story of how her husband, a professor well known in their community for his charm and intelligence, used to blame and criticize her to the point that she felt torn up inside. Charles would level her with his anger, which he usually seemed able to turn on and off at will. After consciously working hard to build her own self-esteem, Marilyn realized one day when Charles began criticizing her that his anger was not having the usual effect. She wasn't taking it in at all. It was as if they were having two separate experiences, his and hers. Marilyn felt as though she had just put a protective shield over her heart, like the covers used to keep children from poking into electrical outlets and getting shocked. Able simply to watch Charles's anger from a distance, she said, "I feel so good that your anger doesn't tear me up into little pieces anymore." Simultaneously, Charles stood staring wide-eyed at his hands. He snarled, grabbed a newspaper, tore it in half, and threw it on the floor. Marilyn said it was as if he had been left holding a ball of angry energy, anger specifically intended to tear, as it had done to her before. So when she didn't take it on, he discharged it in some other way. As we strengthen our non-defensive position, we can better manage how to use our own energy resources. It is this capacity to work with energy and to transform it that gives us the ability to develop and maintain a non-defensive stance, regardless of how the other person reacts. People often ask whether our defensiveness is genetic or cultural in origin. The cross-cultural pervasiveness of defensiveness suggests that a shift of evolutionary proportions would be required to change human beings on a broad scale. This indicates that our defensiveness might be genetic. a residual quality left over from baring our teeth, growling, and putting up our claws whenever we felt threatened. But the speed with which a person can drop all defensiveness suggests an instantaneous energy shift that is psychological and spiritual in nature rather than genetic. I'll give you an example of that. If I mishear what someone says to me and I react to it, and then my brain catches up and processes what they actually said to me, and it isn't something that provokes defensiveness, I can drop that right away. I can let it go. Whatever the source of our defensiveness, we can concentrate our own power to shift our energy interaction by interaction. How cool is that? How cool is that? So again, just even reading that little part of the book makes me want to go back and review some other parts of the book. Practice up. Get my skills back where they need to be. So, and I'm utilizing those skills often in terms of the Intentional Community Project, because someone will say something that I hear one way, and then my brain will catch up and go, wait, I think he means this instead. So then I can ask the clarifying question. I'm wondering if you're meaning this or this, in a very neutral tone. So there's the questioning, and then there's the statements. What I'm observing is, and you just fill in the blank. Again, neutral tone. You're not making a judgment about what you're observing. You're simply describing it as you see it. They can then correct you. Nope, that's not how I'm intending to come across. Sorry, whatever, and work their way through it. Even if they can't shift off of their position, you've at least put it out there into the information field, how you're seeing it. And then there was the part about prediction. And again, not in a threatening way. If you keep doing that, I'm going to leave. No, it's if you do this, I will do that. If you do this, I think this will happen. If you do that, I think that will happen. And again, a piece that I picked up that was very helpful was lay out the various options. Don't just do the one that you want. Yes, helpful for parenting too. Absolutely. Absolutely. So taking the time to lay out the various options. If you do A, I will do B. If you do C, I will do E. If you do whatever. Lay them all out. Yes, toddler parents. That was so much fun. Wasn't that so much fun? Yeah. Little hissy fits. I still remember my son saying to my daughter, well, we were walking through Walmart and some kid was pitching a major class hissy, laying on the floor, flailing, carrying on. And my daughter, who was 14, looked down at this child and said, I was never like that. And her older brother, who was 16, busted out laughing and said, oh, yes, you were. Mom had to abandon the cart several times, tuck you under her arm, take you out with your feet kicking and your head bouncing. And yeah, so he called her up on that one. But we have this vision of ourselves as being all reasonable and whatever. And the other day, it was for Thanksgiving, my sister pointed out to me, you're being defensive. And I was. But I was able to step back and own that. And yes, I'm being defensive. I'm tired. I'm hearing this way. And she explained, nope, that's not the way it was intended. Okay, so I needed to back off and think a little bit and whatever. This takes practice. And it's so helpful if you have people who work with you. So like Morgan, if Tyler works with you on this, it's so much easier than if you feel like, because I remember the thing of, if you were the only parent there with the child behaved one way. And then when the other parent showed up, the child became from hell. And I was like, and then the other parent would go, well, never does that for me. I don't know why, blah, 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 blah. But that's kind of how the kids are, right? They can pit one parent against the other. They're masters at that. So needing to learn, no, this is just what happens when the both of us are here with the child compared to when one or the other of us is here with the child. So yes, same for grandparenting. Grandparenting is a whole different ball of wax than parenting. I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I certainly have observed with friends how it's a whole different ball of wax. Connected parenting, love that. That's lovely. Connected parenting, fabulous. So today, your mission, should you choose to accept it, please accept it, is to take this information and find somewhere to apply it. Practice today. Don't wait until Christmas to practice. Practice today. Where's a circumstance where you can work with someone to modify how you communicate? So I'm going to pick my sister because we're always up for practice on this stuff. And just put some of these things out there. How can I pose the question, the statement, or the prediction in a neutral way? For me, I am not a poker player. I could never play poker. You can read it all over my face what's going on with me, right? So to practice that neutrality takes some work. I need practice. Hopefully all of you realize you need practice and you're willing to take a whack at it. I can't even tell you how excited I would be if some of you decided, I'm going to get the book and I'm going to work on it. And not only that, I'm going to see if the person I have difficulty with is willing to read the book also, and we can talk about it, we can practice, etc. And even if they don't, always good to ask, and then just move forward yourself, because either one of you can make a change to this. Good morning, Carolyn. We're just about done, but I will put the post up right away and see what y'all think. So have an awesome day of practicing your non-defensive communication. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.